A very good evening and welcome to this Wednesday's edition of Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from our News First studios here in Colombo. For the News First team, I'm Mariam Gunavijaya. We start off with a look at your headlines.
President says IMF is the only option and there is no alternative. President also says domestic debt restructuring is a must. Opposition leader slams those responsible for delaying IMF program. Seven senior DIGs given transfers. Ajit Rohana and Priyantha Veerasurya question the move. Sri Lanka files lawsuit in Singapore to secure compensation for Express Pearl disaster. Activists question identity of Chamara Gunasekara. 9 tremors recorded over 4 months in Sri Lanka. Experts say Sri Lanka is not in danger of any major quake. Vimut, Madhushka and Kusal power Sri Lanka to commanding position against Ireland.
On to your lead story this evening. President Ranil Wickremesinghe told Parliament on Wednesday that domestic debt restructuring will not be suspended even if banking services and the stock market collapses. He was speaking during the debate in Parliament over the EFF facility offered by the IMF.
In July last year, I accepted the presidency when the people were suffering, and I believed I could uplift the country. I took up that responsibility in the midst of protests and demonstration. If not, we would have seen total anarchy. Sri Lanka's total debt is $83.6 billion. Foreign debt amounts to $41.5 billion. Domestic debt amounts to $42 billion. The total debt is $83.6 billion. We need to restructure the debt. We will be launching negotiations with foreign creditors. They have informed us to discuss about domestic debt restructuring as well. We have not reached a final decision. Some banks say they cannot face this situation. Then all I have to say is take over this responsibility and carry forward the economy. People cannot place the gun to the head and say certain measures will lead to a collapse. The stock market says that it will collapse. If that happens, I will close it down. They cannot come and speak about conditions now. Let the parliament decide and then we can tell them what needs to be done. There was a question on the EPF. We will not harm the EPF members. We in fact started it.
The president also commented on the structural benchmarks required for macroeconomic adjustments.
Parliamentary approval for a new Central Bank Act, which will table in Parliament next month. Completion of asset quality review component of bank diagnostic exercise for the 2 largest state-owned banks and the 3 largest private sector banks. Parliamentary approval of the welfare benefit payment scheme and the application of new eligibility criteria to identify low-income families of receiving welfare benefit payments. End of May. Cabinet approval of a comprehensive strategy to restructure the balance sheet of CEB, CPC, Sri Lankan Airlines and the RDA in June. Cabinet approval for the full revision of the Banking Act in June.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that everyone should approve the IMF program.
We have no alternative except for the IMF. No one has proposed for any such program. In the absence of a working alternative, our option is to approve this. I would like to tell the MPs from the SJB that even when they were in the UNP, we always wanted to work with the IMF. We have a program and both sides must accept it. I would like to call for all to work together and pass this. Since the IMF team will be here every 6 months, we can discuss the issues as well. Some trade unions have raised concerns over the tax policy, and those can be discussed and solved during the 6-month review. Thereafter, let us join and prepare a national policy framework. Let the entire parliament become the government. If not, none of us will be able to exist in another 2 to 3 years.
බැරි වෙනවා තව අවුරුදු දෙක තුනකින් මේ වැඩ කටයුත්ත කරන්නේ නැත්තම් නීතියක් බවට පත්.
If this is going to be a law, Article 157 of the Constitution refers to international treaties and agreements. Will the agreement be presented under these provisions? Will it become law? If this is simply passed, we will have to introduce related legislations from time to time.
මේ ගිවිසුම තියෙන්නේ වෙනත් රට.
The agreement is not with another state, but with the IMF. If the agreement is enforced, we need to bring new legislation. We will do so through dialogue. Before that, we will discuss with the opposition and prepare the draft. I have instructed the Treasury to commence work on that.
භාණ්ඩාගාරයට ඒ කියන්නේ වැඩ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කරන්න කියලා අපි පිළිගන්නවා බංකොලොත් රටක.
We accept that the country is bankrupt and we all have a responsibility to think anew in order to rise from this situation. I would like to state one thing. You have to walk the talk. Issues can arise in the implementation of some of the proposals that you made. The appointment of the Finance Committee is delayed continuously. They appoint one of their own as a pro-tem chairman and get all the paperwork approved. The designation mentioned in your comments and the present process are contradicting each other. We are prepared to support what is right. However, we cannot turn a blind eye to what is wrong. If we are to engage in this journey, Dr. Harsha De Silva must be appointed as the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance. How can this process be followed when henchmen are being appointed as chairman? What is this joke? COPE and COPA positions should have been given to Iran and Kabir. There is no point in passing paperwork like this.
මේ එක එකව පාස් කරගෙන හරියන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් මොකද අහගෙන ඉන්නවා. රට වෙනුවෙන් අහගෙන ඉන්නවා. අනේ කේන්දනේ අහගෙන ඉන්න. අනේ තමුන්නාන්සලා තුන් කාලයකට මේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා කිව්ව දේ තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ හලෝ. මොන පිස්සු කතා. දන්න කෙහෙම්මල මොන කෙහෙම්මලක්වත් තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ. අහගෙන ඉන්න. එනවද කතා කරන්න? තේරුම ගැන. මොනවද? මොකද්ද extended fund facility කියන්නේ? දන්න කෙහෙම්මලක් නැහැ. මොලේ කලදක් නැහැ. අහගෙන ඉන්න. ජනාධිපතිතුමා කිව්ව දේ හරි. අපි
The president was right. We also proposed to approach the IMF. When the president was in the opposition, he pointed the finger at Basil Rajapaksa and said to table discussions with the IMF, who said that approaching the IMF was betraying the nation and that it would destroy the country. None of those in the government understand anything. They raise their hands for whatever the president says.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා කියන දේට අත උස්සනවා. මොලේ කලඩක්වත් නැහැ. ඔයා වාඩි වෙන්න අපිට කතා කරන්න ඉඩ දෙන්න. ජනාධිපතිතුමා වාඩි කරවන්න.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා එතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශය කරා. ඊළඟට තියෙන්නේ 27 දෙක යටතේ ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න. ඉතින් අපි ලෑස්ති නෑ එතුමා කියන හැමදේම අහගෙන ඉන්න.
ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ hinaවෙම තියෙනවා ඔයාට දක්වන ප්‍රතිචාරය. ජනාධිපතිතුමා දන්නවාගේ පැටිකිරිය. හරි. ජනාධිපතිතුමා එක වැඩ කරන්න ඉස්සලා අපි වැඩ කරේ හලෝ. හරි. ගරු ජනාධිපති මේ වාඩි කරවන්න.
I must tell you I am going to walk the talk and I know you all are going to walk with me. Thank you.
Please don't make that presumption. Don't presume things. No, you have. You just said no, SJB is going to walk with you. Not at all. We will go through the debate.
Please go ahead with you.
We will never ever walk with people who have betrayed the country.
Question.
විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා සමග අපි ඡායෝගයෙන් වැඩ කර
We will work together with the opposition leader as the opposition. However, the Uttara Lanka Sabhagya does not represent his stance on the IMF.
අපි නියෝජනය කරන්නේ නැහැ.
පහුගිය ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී මහමැතිවරණ
A speech that contradicts the mandate of the people is made and the MPs are applauding it. The reality on earth will win against the dreamland of the president.
ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න ගරු කතානායකතුමනි පොළවේ යථාර්ථය.
A number of policymakers expressed their views in Parliament today during the debate on the extended fund facility extended by the IMF.
මන් දන්නේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා විලා කියපේක නම් මට පිළිගන්නම බෑ.
I cannot accept what the president said in his speech. What has he done regarding the EPF and ETF? I don't think ministers or the president have an EPF or ETF. A government must take all possible steps to protect it. Do not meddle with it. Those are not government funds. They belong to the respective people.
ඒවා අයිති ඒ පුද්ගලයන්ට අයිති. මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ
This is the most serious document that challenges the president's 40-year-long political career. There is a word in this called structural benchmark. After every sentence, the word structural benchmark is included. What does it mean? To simplify it, when toddlers start to learn how to walk, we block doors so that they do not go beyond a certain point. This is something similar to that. Our leaders have been treated like kids. We have never seen IMF documents using such language before. This has been drafted considering our leaders and politicians as children. No one who has read this agreement will accept it. Only those who have not read it are the ones that will cheer it, praise it and raise their hand for it. As the Freedom People's Alliance, we will vote against this. Although you plotted to bring about political instability while in this government, you never worked towards creating stability in the country. Did you gain a satisfaction through the people's suffering? Do not keep playing the same old record. The longer you play it, the more people will despise you. So, let's come together and strengthen the country. When an election is announced, let's work according to our political views.
Two senior DIGs in Sri Lanka have openly questioned the transfers given to them, noting that the transfers did not follow due process.
Sri Lanka's police chief C.D. Vikramaratne transferred 7 senior DIGs with immediate effect, with the cover approval of the National Police Commission and the approval of the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security. Senior DIG Lalit Patinayake was transferred as the senior DIG in charge of the Central Province from the Police Field Force Headquarters. Senior DIG in charge of the Central Province, Priyantha Veerasurya, was given a transfer as the senior DIG for the Crimes and Traffic Division. Senior DIG LKWK Silva, who was in charge of the Crimes and Traffic Division, was transferred to the Police Field Force Headquarters. Senior DIG Sajiva Madhavatta was transferred as the Senior DIG in charge of the Southern Province from Acting Senior DIG post for the Northwestern Province and Senior DIG Support Services. Senior DIG Ajit Rohana was transferred as the Senior DIG in charge of the Eastern Province from the Southern Province. Senior DIG WK Jayalath, who was in charge of the Eastern Province, was moved to the Northwestern Province. Senior DIG Ranmal Kodituaku, who was in charge of the Police Medical, Welfare and Field Force Headquarters, was given a transfer as the Senior DIG for Support Services. Senior DIG Ajit Rohana, in a letter to the chairman of the National Police Commission, Chandra Fernando, notes that the decision to transfer him to the Eastern Province is malicious, arbitrary and unreasonable. He said these malicious acts are done to harass the senior DIGs and to protect one senior DIG. Senior DIG Ajit Rohana requested the National Police Commission not to accept the unlawful transfer given to him. At the same time, Senior DIG Ajit Rohana informed the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security, Viyani Gunathilaka, that the Ministry of Public Security has no power to issue orders of transfer. He notes that he is not bound to follow the transfer order. At the same time, Senior DIG Priyantha Veerasurya, in a letter to the chairman of the National Police Commission, notes that he has been transferred without mentioning the reason. Veerasurya said that he notices that senior DIGs are given transfers with immediate effect without showing cause, merely mentioning that the transfer is on exigencies of service and cover approval of the National Police Commission. He said that this ad hoc system has created frustration among the victimized officers to perform their duties free and fair to the public. Senior DIG Priyantha Veerasurya said he objects to the transfer order and requests the NPC not to approve the malicious, unreasonable and unjustifiable transfer orders given by the Public Security Ministry and the IGP.
It was reported that the National Police Commission that met today had approved the transfers given to 7 senior DIGs. Senior DIG Ajit Rohana, who was transferred from the Southern Province to the Eastern Province, was summoned to the police headquarters. Further action regarding Senior DIG Ajit Rohana will be taken after an inquiry. The National Police Commission also said that SDIG Ajit Rohana was temporarily assigned to the police headquarters.
The Samagi Janabalawege also commented on the police transfers.
A DIG states that the transfer was put in place without approval from the National Police Commission. Senior DIG Ajit Rohana has objected to the transfer. The independence of Sri Lanka Police is tarnished. It has come to a position where Sri Lanka Police do not execute the court orders. We need law and order. When the law is led astray, so does the country. This is what happened in the past.
නීතිය හා සාමය තියෙන්න ඕන. නීතිය වෙනසෙනකොට රටත් වෙනසෙනවා. ඒක තමයි පහුගිය කාලේ සිද්ධ වුණේ.
Akila Viraj Karyavasam, the assistant leader of the UNP, commented on the police transfers.
police නියෝජ්‍ය පොලිස්පතිවරු කීප දෙනෙක් මාරු කරලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේක අපේ ආරංචි හැටියට නම් පොලිස් කොමිසමේ අනුමැතියක් නැතුව තමයි මාරු කරලා තියෙනවා. ඔබතුමා ඒක දැනුවත්ද? නෑ ඉතින් ඒ මන් දැක්කයි.
I witnessed several media reports. It must have been discussed with the IGP and the National Police Commission. Sri Lanka Police has the right to make administrative decisions. They have been given a different province and will continue policing. We do not need to take it into consideration.
ඉතින් ඒ පොලිසිය රාජකාරියමනේ කරන්නේ. ඒක ඉච්චර අපි සැලකිය යුතුයි කියලා විශ්වාස කරන්නේ.
Crossing for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back. Moving on with more local developments, 2 officers attached to the Attorney General's Department, one an additional Solicitor General and another who is a state counsel, instituted action in the District Court of Colombo against Darshana Handungoda, a YouTuber who had deemed this said 2 officials.
When the matter was taken up to be supported in the District Court of Colombo, the district judge, after hearing the submissions, granted an enjoining order against the defendant, preventing him from further circulating the said defamatory video.
Sri Lanka's Attorney General's Department says that legal action was filed with a court in Singapore to claim compensation for the damages caused by the Express Pearl maritime disaster in the Sea of Sri Lanka.
Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam told News First that the case was filed through a law firm in Singapore. He further stated that the court will be informed about the compensation amount in the future. He also said that a detailed report has been called for from the Marine Environment Protection Authority to make the compensation claim. The Express Pearl incident is the worst maritime disaster to have struck Sri Lanka. It has had a significant impact on Sri Lanka's sensitive coastal environment, local communities and the economy.
Representatives from the Voice Against Corruption visited the police headquarters in Colombo on Wednesday afternoon to file a complaint with regard to a statement made by Justice Minister in Parliament recently.
We need to focus on the program in play to direct the people's attention to the other side. The IGP must intervene in this bribery matter, pursue the name Chamara Gunasekara, track down the bank accounts and conduct an investigation. There was a shipping disaster. Instead of filing a case here and securing the compensation, they have decided to file a case in Singapore. Who advised the Attorney General to file a case in Singapore? Who advised to spend millions of dollars to pay the Singaporean law firm? The Minister of Justice cannot simply go about speaking on rumours. He is the Justice Minister. We told the IGP that the Justice Minister commented on the $250 million deal in Parliament and to conduct an investigation to expose the politicians behind this and to recover the money.
The Socialist Youth Union and environmental organization staged a protest opposite the Ministry of Justice, stating that securing compensation for the Express Pearl disaster has become problematic. The protest was held under the theme, "Let's prevent environmental looters from denying Sri Lanka the compensation due for the Express Pearl disaster."
MIPA has assessed the damage and it has been estimated at $6.4 billion. We have an issue with how that was calculated. Secondly, the former chairman of the Express Pearl Committee said that their recommendation was to file action in Sri Lanka. The issue now is why are they not filing action in Sri Lanka? We don't want to just win this case, but also secure proper compensation for this disaster.
Sri Lanka's Geological Survey and Mines Bureau says the country is no longer at risk of experiencing major earthquakes.
Sri Lanka experienced a spike in the number of tremors experienced so far in 2023 compared to the number of tremors experienced over the past 4 years. According to the country's Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, 16 tremors were recorded in 2020, 18 in 2021 and 5 tremors were recorded in 2022. However, during the first 4 months alone in 2023, a total of 9 tremors were recorded. The Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, Department of Meteorology, and the Disaster Management Centre convened a joint briefing in Colombo to address concerns from the public.
The Himalayan mountain range was formed as a result of a collision between two continental plates. Even today, the Himalayan mountain range moves up. An earthquake is the release of energy from the Earth's tectonic plates. The energy is released across those plate borders. That means across the Indo-Australian plate border. Experts now assume that another plate could be formed to the south of the country. When the Indo-Australian plate collides with the Eurasian plate, and instead of pushing the Himalayan mountain range upwards, this is a phenomenon that takes place over hundreds of thousands of years. I am not saying that it would happen today or tomorrow. However, expert geologists assume that the process has begun. Another view is that when we consider Sri Lanka's position, it can be mapped into three segments. The minor tremors are experienced along the borders of the central highlands and the plains. We believe that seismic activity in this region has stopped. However, we have doubts if there are fissures leading to other events. We cannot reach a decision on the formation of a new plate based on the data that we have. We will have to speak on millimeters per year on this matter. We need to install sensitive equipment to understand the situation. We are discussing the matter with the government surveyor to establish a benchmark at identified locations.
News first with the people.
Professor Priyanga Dunusingha of the Department of Economics at the University of Colombo says the move of making the Indian rupee a designated currency in Sri Lanka is a temporary solution to the country's liquidity issue. Governor of the Central Bank Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe revealed on Tuesday that Indian tourists will be able to use Indian rupees to make payments within Sri Lanka.
The central bank chief made this announcement while delivering the keynote in a webinar organized by the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Veerasinghe went on to note that making the Indian rupee a designated currency by the CBSL will not only enable trade settlement between the two nations in Indian rupees, but also allow Indian tourists arriving in Sri Lanka to use the Indian rupee for transactions. How can a foreign currency be used for transactions within Sri Lanka?
There are certain hotels and other locations that are populated by foreigners in Sri Lanka, currently allowing payments in currencies such as the dollar, euro and yen. That facility is already available. What this latest development means is such locations allowing payments in foreign currencies will start accepting the Indian rupee as a designated currency from now on. This does not mean one can purchase a king coconut or an item from a retail store using Indian rupees. Sri Lankan rupees must be used in any location that does not accept Indian rupees.
What are the pros and cons of naming the Indian rupee a designated currency in Sri Lanka?
An Indian rupee account has already been opened at the Bank of Ceylon branch in Chennai. What will essentially happen is transactions with India will happen through the use of Indian rupees. Further, Indian tourists are able to pay using Indian rupees in Sri Lanka if such a place allows payments through another currency. Indian investors can also invest through Indian rupees. What is expected through this is to reduce the demand of the dollar to some extent while strengthening economic ties between Sri Lanka and India at a faster pace. India has reached an agreement with around 35 countries to conduct transactions through Indian rupees. What India is attempting is to turn the Indian rupee into the dollar of the South Asian region. Prior to independence, the Indian rupee was used in Sri Lanka, the Middle East and even in some African countries. Conducting transactions using the Indian rupee will bring certain advantages to Sri Lanka. We know India's economy is growing rapidly. At a time like this, conducting transactions through the Indian rupee will allow Sri Lanka to broaden economic transactions with India. This will also temporarily address Sri Lanka's liquidity issue. However, if we are to import raw materials using dollars and go on to sell products in Indian rupees, we might face a certain disadvantage.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Jolie Chung and the Ministry of Defence responded to a statement made by MP Vimal Veeravansha.
The book titled 9, The Hidden Story, penned by parliamentarian Vimal Weerawansa, was launched in Colombo on Tuesday the 25th of April. Weerawansa said that the United States of America and India had requested former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to fire Ranil Wickremesinghe. Ambassador Julie Chang tweeted that she was disappointed that an MP has made baseless allegations and spread outright lies in a book that should be labelled fiction. She said that for 75 years, the US and Sri Lanka shared commitments to democracy, sovereignty and prosperity, a partnership and future that they would continue to build together. The Ministry of Defence also issued a statement in response to the statement made by parliamentarian Vimal Weerawansa regarding the Chief of Defence Staff and former Army Commander General Shavendra Silva, who was in India during the 9th July Aragalaya. The statement noted that the Deputy National Security Advisor level meeting of the Colombo Security Conclave, a security conference organised between friendly countries in the South Indian Ocean region, was held in India on the 7th of July 2022. The Ministry of Defence emphasises that under the directions and approval of the then President of Sri Lanka and the Defence Ministry, the Chief of Defence Staff and former Commander of the Army, General Shavendra Silva, participated in the meeting representing the government of Sri Lanka.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka, in a statement regarding the anti-terrorism bill, says that several provisions of the bill contravenes the legal rights of citizens.
Issuing a statement, the BASL says that a special committee consisting of senior legal experts was appointed to review the anti-terrorism bill that was gazetted recently. The BASL says that the committee concluded that several clauses of the anti-terrorism bill infringe upon the principles of the criminal justice system and are in contravention of the legal rights of citizens. The statement says that it is the view of the committee that the provisions stipulated in the bill violate the fundamental rights, especially the freedom of speech, assembly and movement. It adds that the BASL will be making representations to the Ministry of Justice and all other stakeholders requesting that amendments be made to the bill in compliance with the law. The BASL also notes that if the bill is placed on the order paper of Parliament without any amendments, the BASL will challenge the anti-terrorism bill at the appropriate forum.
In the meantime, the Organisation of Professionals Association of Sri Lanka issued a statement on the independence of the judiciary.
The OPA notes that the judiciary singularly stands out as one of the distinct pillars of the doctrine of separation of powers. It also notes that in matters of interpreting the law of this country, the exclusive jurisdiction is vested with the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka and its decision is final and conclusive. The Organisation of Professionals Association of Sri Lanka in the statement notes, quote, "It is a matter of grave concern to learn that the Speaker of Parliament has referred an interim order given by the Supreme Court in a fundamental rights application in relation to the local government elections to the Parliamentary Committee on Ethics and Privileges to inquire into potential violation of parliamentary privileges," unquote. The statement in conclusion notes, quote, "Casting doubt on the judiciary will erode the confidence that the public has on the judicial system as a whole," unquote.
The regional conference of the Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka will be held on Thursday, the 27th of April in Jaffna. The Jaffna Regional Conference is the first conference organised by CA Sri Lanka in Jaffna. The objective of the conference is to exert relevant and required social and economic impact and the involvement of stakeholders with the Institute's activities from across the Jaffna region. The conference will comprise of technical sessions and a panel discussion with subject experts. In the meantime, the LOLC Divi Savya program launched to uplift the lives of the future generations of Sri Lanka continues. Books and other stationery items were distributed among students in the Mana district on Wednesday.
The Divi Savya program is focused on providing books and stationery items to school students from the most economically challenged parts of Sri Lanka. This praiseworthy initiative is a collaboration between the LOLC group and the Ministry of Education. Books and other stationery equipment were distributed among students of the Thampanayakkulam Tamil Vidyalaya. Students from the Pannaveduan School and the Kirisuddan School also received stationery under the program. Books and stationery were distributed among students of the Periyamadu East Muslim School this afternoon. Under the LOLC Divisavia program, books and stationery equipment were also distributed among students of the Kalyadi Vidyalaya. Students of the Kovil Kulam Vidyalaya were also gifted with books and stationery equipment under the LOLC Divisavia program today.
We will be back after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. In international developments, WhatsApp is finally rolling out multi-device logging support for more than one phone.
Mark Zuckerberg announced the feature's rollout on Facebook and Instagram, saying, quote-unquote, starting today, you can log into the same WhatsApp account on up to 4 phones. WhatsApp said that this feature is rolling out to all users within the coming weeks. Until now, users could only use one WhatsApp account on one phone and multiple companion desktop devices. With this new rollout, users' messages will be synced across devices, including other phones. So even if one device is switched off, they can access the app on the other device. WhatsApp is one of the biggest messaging services around, with more than 2 billion users. But it lacked multi-phone support until now because of full end-to-end encryption support for chats and calls. The company started testing multi-device compatibility back in 2021 with select beta users. At that time, Meta said it had developed new tech to sync messages across devices while maintaining end-to-end encryption protection.
Singer Ed Sheeran has appeared in a New York City court to deny that his song Thinking Out Loud copied Marvin Gaye's song Let's Get It On.
Heirs of Gaye's co-writer Ed Townsend argue that Sheeran, Warner Music Group and Sony Music Publishing owe them money for allegedly stealing the song. As the case opened, their lawyer called Sheeran's use of lyrics from Gaye's song at his concerts a smoking gun.
And I'm thinking about how
In your sports news update, day 3 of the second test of Sri Lanka and Ireland got underway at the Galle International Cricket Stadium, and when play was stopped for the day, Sri Lanka won 357 runs for the loss of 1 wicket.
Sri Lanka opened day 3 on an overnight score of 81 runs for no loss. Sri Lanka captain Dimuth Karunaratne went on to post his 16th Test century on Wednesday and was eventually dismissed for 115 runs. Thereafter, Nishan Madhushka and Kusal Mendis put on an unbeaten 129-run stand. Nishan recorded his maiden Test 100 and was 149 not out when play was stopped for the day. Kusal Mendis posted his 18th Test half-century and was unbeaten on 83. Earlier, Ireland posted 492 runs all out in their first innings.
There is a possibility of being stopped due to bad light.
Before we wrap up primetime news tonight, we'd like to remind our viewers to stay tuned to News First as Face the Nation is coming up next. Don't forget to watch the program on TV1 where Minister of Justice Dr. Vijayadas Rajapaksa will field questions on the proposed Anti-Terrorism Act. This is sure to be an exciting and eye-opening event with our seasoned panel of journalists joined by legal luminaries and senior representatives of opposition parties. Tonight at 9:30 on TV1, Dialogue TV channel number 10 and POTV channel number 12. And that's it from us tonight. Good night and take care.